The contract that changed everything. Natalie Brooks stared at the contract in front of her, hands shaking slightly as she held the expensive pen. The office on the 52nd floor of Lancaster Tower was cold, just like the man sitting across from her. Owen Lancaster, 34 years old, CEO of Lancaster Technologies, looked at her with eyes the color of storm clouds. He was not offering her love. He was offering her a deal. 2 years, Owen said, his voice sharp and businesslike. You marry me, attend company events, and maintain appearances. In return, you get $400,000 immediately. Your younger brother gets the surgery he needs. When the 2 years end, we divorce quietly, and you walk away with another $200,000. Natalie's throat felt tight. Her brother Danny was only 19 years old, fighting a rare heart condition. The surgery cost $380,000, and their insurance had refused to cover it. She had applied for loans everywhere. Every bank said no. Every door had closed in her face, until this strange advertisement appeared online, seeking wife for business arrangement. Serious inquiries only. Why me? Natalie asked, her voice barely above a whisper. She was 28, working as a junior accountant at a small firm, living in a tiny apartment in Brooklyn. She was nobody special. Owen leaned back in his leather chair, fingers steepled under his chin. You were educated but not ambitious enough to threaten me. You were attractive but not so beautiful that people will question why you would marry someone like me. You are desperate enough to say yes, but smart enough to keep quiet about the arrangement. The words stung like a slap. Natalie wanted to throw the pen at his face and storm out. But then she thought of Danny in the hospital bed, his skin pale, his breathing labored. She thought of her mother crying every night, praying for a miracle. Natalie signed the contract. The wedding that felt like a funeral 3 weeks later. They stood in a courthouse in Manhattan. Natalie wore a simple white dress from a department store. Owen wore a gray suit and checked his phone twice during the 5-minute ceremony. There were no flowers, no music, no guests except for 2 witnesses Owen hired from a temp agency. The judge pronounced them husband and wife. Owen shook her hand like they had just closed a business deal. That same afternoon, $400,000 appeared in Natalie's bank account. She immediately transferred $380,000 to the hospital. Danny got his surgery the next day. Natalie moved into Owen's penthouse apartment in Manhattan, cold, modern space with floor-to-ceiling windows and furniture that looked expensive but uncomfortable. Owen showed her to a bedroom on the opposite end of the apartment from his own. These are your rooms, he said. I work most nights until 11 or midnight. I prefer silence when I am home. Breakfast is at 6 a.m. if you want to join, though it is not required. Mrs. Patterson, the housekeeper, will handle your needs. Any questions? Natalie had 1,000 questions, but she asked none of them. 6 months of invisible marriage, the first 6 months passed like a strange dream. Natalie rarely saw Owen. He left before dawn and returned after she had gone to bed. They had dinner together only twice, both times in complete silence, except for the sound of forks on plates. He never asked about her day. He never asked about Danny, who was recovering well. He treated her like expensive furniture he had purchased, did not particularly care about. Natalie spent her days visiting Danny, reading books, and walking through Central Park alone. She felt like a ghost in her own life. But she reminded herself, only 18 months to go. Then she would be free. And Danny would be healthy. Then came the invitation that changed everything. The company gala, Lancaster Technologies' annual gala. The invitation read in elegant silver script. Black tie required, spouses welcome. Owen appeared in her doorway that evening, the first time he had entered her space in 6 months. We need to attend together, he said. It is important for appearances. I have arranged for a stylist to bring you appropriate clothing tomorrow. The next day, a woman named Francine arrived with 3 evening gowns. The one Natalie chose was deep emerald green, elegant but not flashy. The stylist did her hair and makeup, transforming her into someone who looked like she belonged in Owen's world. When she emerged from her room that evening, Owen was waiting by the door in a black tuxedo. For a brief moment, something flickered in his eyes. Surprise? Appreciation? But it vanished so quickly that Natalie thought she had imagined it. "He looked acceptable," he said. Those were his only words during the entire car ride to the Plaza Hotel. The moment it shattered everything. The ballroom was magnificent. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling like frozen waterfalls. 500 people filled the space, the most powerful business leaders in New York City. Waiters circulated with champagne and appetizers. A string quartet played soft classical music. Natalie stayed close to Owen as he moved through the crowd, shaking hands and making small talk with executives and investors. She smiled politely when introduced, said little, and felt increasingly out of place. These people spoke a different language, one of stock options and quarterly earnings and board meetings. Then Owen guided her toward a table near the front of the room, where the company executives were seated. Natalie felt a flutter of relief. At least she would be sitting down soon. But Owen stopped walking 5 feet from the executive table. He turned to face her, his expression cold and blank. "The executive table is full," he said, his voice low but clear. "You will sit over there." He gestured toward a table at the back of the room, near the kitchen doors. With the administrative staff, Natalie felt the blood drain from her face. Around them, conversation stopped. People turned to stare. "What?" she whispered. "You heard me," Owen said, louder now. "You are not an executive. You do not work for this company. You will sit with people of your appropriate level." The entire ballroom seemed to hold its breath. 500 pairs of eyes watched as Natalie stood frozen, humiliation burning through her like acid. Owen's message was clear. She was beneath him. She did not belong at his level. She was just a purchased accessory and not even a valuable one. Natalie felt tears threatening, but she forced them back. She lifted her chin, turned on her heel, and walked toward the back table. Each step felt like walking through broken glass. She could hear the whispers starting, the gasps of shock, the murmurs of pity and judgment. She reached the table where 5 young women sat, all administrative assistants for various departments. They looked at her with wide, sympathetic eyes. "I am Natalie," she said quietly, sitting down in the empty chair. "We know who you are," one woman said gently. Her name tag read Jennifer Chen, executive assistant. "I am so sorry. That was cruel." Natalie said nothing. She stared at her empty plate and tried to disappear. But Jennifer leaned closer and whispered something that would change everything. "You should know something. This company is in trouble. Owen Lancaster is driving it into the ground with his arrogance. 3 board members are planning to vote him out at the next meeting. If you are smart, you will protect yourself before this whole thing collapses." Natalie looked up sharply. "What do you mean?" Jennifer glanced around, then pulled out her phone. "I have been documenting everything. Financial irregularities. Bad decisions. I was going to leak it to the press, but—" She paused. "Maybe you could use it instead. To protect yourself in the divorce." Something cold and determined settled into Natalie's chest. She looked across the ballroom at Owen, who was laughing with a group of investors, completely unconcerned about the wife he had just publicly humiliated. "Tell me everything," Natalie said, and Jennifer Chen smiled. The secret investigation begins the morning after the gala. Natalie woke up with a new purpose burning in her chest. She was done being invisible. She was done being humiliated. If Owen Lancaster wanted to treat her like she was nothing, she would show him exactly how wrong he was. Jennifer Chen had given her a phone number before they left the gala. "Call me tomorrow," Jennifer had whispered. "I work directly under the CFO. I see everything that happens in this company. And trust me, there is a lot Owen does not want anyone to see." Natalie waited until Owen left for work at his usual 6 a.m. departure time. Then she called Jennifer from the privacy of her bedroom, door locked. "I have been waiting for your call," Jennifer said. "Listen, I need to be careful. If Owen finds out I am sharing company information, I will lose my job. But what he did to you last night was unforgivable. And honestly, this company needs someone to stop him before he destroys everything. What exactly is happening?" Natalie asked, her heart pounding. Jennifer's voice dropped lower. "Owen has been making terrible business decisions for the past year. He rejected a merger with Chen Industries that would have saved us millions. Why? Because the CEO is a woman, and Owen does not think women belong in leadership. He invested $50 million in a tech startup that every analyst said would fail. And it did fail, just 3 months ago. He refuses to listen to anyone on his team. 3 of our best engineers quit last month because Owen told them their ideas were stupid. Natalie listened, her mind racing. But the company seems successful. The stock price is still high. That is because Owen is very good at hiding problems, Jennifer explained. He has been moving money between accounts to make the quarterly reports look better than they are. It is not quite illegal, but it is definitely unethical. And it cannot last much longer. The board is starting to ask questions. How do you know all this? Because I prepare the reports that Owen's assistant sends to the CFO. I see the real numbers before they get adjusted. I have been keeping copies of everything for 6 months, just in case I need to protect myself when this all falls apart. Natalie took a deep breath. Can you send me those copies? There was a pause. Then Jennifer said, Why? What are you planning? I do not know yet, Natalie admitted. But Owen made me feel worthless last night. He wanted everyone to see that I mean nothing to him. So I want to understand his world, understand his company, and figure out how to make sure he never treats anyone like that again. Jennifer laughed, but it was not a happy sound. I like you, Natalie. Okay, I will send you files. But you have to promise me something? What? When you take him down, and I think you will, you have to make sure people like me do not lose our jobs. The people who actually do the work at Lancaster Technologies, we do not deserve to suffer because Owen is a terrible leader. Promise, Natalie said. And she meant it. Becoming a student of business for the next 3 months, Natalie transformed herself. She spent every day studying business, finance, and corporate management. She enrolled in online courses from Harvard Business School. She read every book she could find about company leadership and financial analysis. She studied Lancaster Technologies specifically, learning every detail about their products, their competitors, their market position. Jennifer sent her files every week. Financial reports, internal emails, meeting notes, strategy documents. Natalie studied them all. Slowly, she began to see the full picture of Owen's failures. But she needed more than just information. She needed credibility. She needed people to take her seriously when the time came to act. So Natalie did something bold. She reached out to Robert Thornton, the lead investor in Lancaster Technologies and a member of the company board. She had met him briefly at the gala, and he had been one of the few people who had looked at her with sympathy when Owen sent her to the back table. Mr. Thornton, this is Natalie Lancaster, she said when he answered her call. I know this is unusual, but I need to speak with you about something important. It concerns your investment in Lancaster Technologies. There was a long pause. Then Thornton said, Mrs. Lancaster, I'm calling to complain about your husband. I am not interested in getting involved in marital issues. This is not about our marriage, Natalie said firmly. This is about your $80 million investment and the fact that is risking all of it because he refuses to listen to advice from anyone. You have my attention. Keep talking. Natalie took a deep breath and began to explain everything she had learned. The failed investments, the rejected merger, the engineers who quit, the financial manipulation. She spoke for 20 minutes, and Thornton did not interrupt once. When she finished, Thornton said quietly, How do you know all this? I have documentation, financial records, emails, meeting notes. I can send them to you if you want to verify everything. Why are you telling me this? You are his wife. Natalie thought about the gala, about sitting at that back table while Owen laughed with his friends. Because he does not treat me like a wife. He treats me like property, and I am done being property. Thornton was silent for a moment. Then he said something that surprised her. I already knew some of what you just told me. The board has been investigating Owen for the past month, but we did not have enough evidence to act. If you really have documentation, that changes everything. What happens next? Natalie asked. Send me what you have. I will review it with the other board members. And Natalie. His voice became warmer. You are braver than your husband deserves. Whatever happens, I will make sure you are protected. The board meeting that changed everything 6 weeks later, Natalie received a phone call from Thornton. The board is meeting next Tuesday at 2 p.m. to discuss Owen's leadership. I want you to attend. Me. Why? Because the board has reviewed your documentation and we have some questions. Also, we have a proposal we think you will find interesting. Natalie's hands were shaking when she arrived at Lancaster Tower on Tuesday afternoon. She had told Owen she was going shopping, and he had barely looked up from his computer when she left. He had no idea what was about to happen. The boardroom was on the 54th floor, massive space with a long table and leather chairs. 8 board members sat around the table, including Thornton, and at the head of the table, looking confused and irritated, sat Owen. What is she doing here? Owen demanded when Natalie walked in. Thornton stood up. Mrs. Lancaster is here because we invited her. Please sit down, Natalie. Natalie sat in an empty chair, keeping her back straight and her expression calm, even though her heart was racing. Thornton remained standing. Owen, this board has lost confidence in your leadership. Over the past year, you have made decisions that have cost this company over $60 million. You have ignored advice from your team, rejected profitable opportunities, and created a toxic work environment that has driven away talented employees. Owen's face turned red. That is absurd. This company is more profitable than ever. Only on paper, another board member, a woman named Patricia Wu, spoke up. You have been manipulating the financial reports to hide losses. We have seen the real numbers now, thanks to your wife. Owen's head snapped toward Natalie. The look on his face was pure fury mixed with shock. You did this. Natalie met his eyes steadily. You wanted me to be invisible, so I became invisible. And invisible people see everything, Thornton continued. We are not removing you from the company entirely, Owen, but we are making changes, effective immediately. You will share the CEO position with a co-CEO who will have equal authority over all company decisions. Absolutely not, Owen said, standing up. I built this company. I am not sharing control with anyone. Then you can resign, and we will find a new CEO, Thornton said calmly. Your choice. Owen sat back down, jaw clenched. Fine, who is this co-CEO? Thornton smiled. Natalie Lancaster. The room fell completely silent. Owen stared at Thornton like he had lost his mind. Natalie felt her breath catch in her throat. That is insane, Owen finally said. She has no business experience. She is just an accountant. Actually, Patricia Wu said, we have thoroughly vetted Mrs. Lancaster over the past 6 weeks. She has completed advanced business courses from Harvard. She has demonstrated exceptional analytical skills in her review of our company operations. And most importantly, she has shown better judgment in 6 weeks than you have shown in a year. Thornton looked at Natalie. The board is offering you the position of co-CEO with a salary of $300,000 per year. You will have equal authority with Owen over all company decisions. Any major choice will require agreement from both CEOs. Do you accept? Natalie looked at Owen. He was staring at her with an expression she had never seen before. Not just anger, something deeper. Fear. He was afraid of her. Good, she thought, except Natalie said. The first day of war the next morning. Natalie arrived at Lancaster Tower at 7 a.m. She was directed to an office on the 52nd floor, directly across the hall from Owen's. The office was smaller than his, but it had the same view of Manhattan, the same expensive furniture, the same quiet power. Owen appeared in her doorway at 7:30, his face a mask of cold fury. I do not know what game you think you are playing, he said, his voice low and dangerous. But you made a mistake. You are in my world now, and I will make sure everyone knows you do not belong here. Natalie stood up and walked toward him until they were face to face. I have spent 6 months being invisible in your home. I have spent my entire life being underestimated. But I am done with that. You wanted a wife you could control? Congratulations. You got a partner you will have to respect. I will never respect you. Then this is going to be a very difficult 2 years for both of us, Natalie said. Because like it or not, we are equals now. In this company, if nowhere else. Owen stared at her for a long moment. Then he turned and walked away without another word. But Natalie noticed something. His hands had been clenched into fists, and they were shaking. Over the next 3 months, Owen and Natalie fought over every decision. He proposed a new marketing campaign. She rejected it and suggested a better one. She wanted to hire back one of the engineers who had quit. He refused, so she went over his head to the board, who approved her decision. He tried to exclude her from meetings. She showed up anyway, often with better preparation than he had. The employees watched their battle with fascination. Some sided with Owen, viewing Natalie as an outsider who had stolen power she did not earn. Others sided with Natalie, grateful that someone was finally standing up to Owen's arrogance. But something strange began to happen. The constant proximity, the endless arguments, the forced collaboration started to change things between them. Natalie began to notice small details about Owen, how he rubbed his temples when he was stressed, how he stayed late working on problems he could not solve alone, how sometimes, when he thought no one was looking, he seemed deeply, profoundly lonely. And Owen began to notice things about Natalie. How passionate she became when defending her ideas. How she remembered the names of every employee and asked about their families. How she worked just as hard as he did, often harder. How smart she actually was, smarter than he had ever given her credit for. One night, they were both working late on a proposal that had to be submitted by morning. It was 11 p.m., and they were the only 2 people left in the office. They sat across from each other in the conference room, reviewing documents. "This section is weak," Natalie said, pointing to a paragraph. "We need stronger data to support the claim." "I agree," Owen said, surprising her. "Do we have the research to back it up?" "I think so. Let me check." She pulled up files on her laptop. They worked in silence for a few minutes. Then Owen said quietly, "You are good at this." "Better than I expected." Natalie looked up, startled. It was the closest thing to a compliment he had ever given her. "Thank you," she said carefully. Another silence. Then Owen said even more quietly, "Why did you marry me?" "The real reason. It cannot have been just the money." Natalie closed her laptop. "My brother was dying. He needed a surgery we could not afford. You offered me enough money to save his life. So yes, it was just the money. But money for a good reason." Owen nodded slowly. "And now? Why are you still here, fighting for this company? You could have taken your evidence to the board and demanded a divorce. You could have destroyed me completely, because that is not who I am," Natalie said. "I do not want to destroy you, Owen. I want you to be better. This company has 800 employees who depend on it for their livelihoods. Their families depend on it. I am not going to let your pride ruin all of those lives." Owen looked at her for a long moment, and something shifted in his expression. "I was wrong about you. Completely wrong." It was not an apology. But it was a start. The wall begins to crack after that late night in the conference room. Something changed between Owen and Natalie. The fights continued, but they became less personal and more professional. They still disagreed constantly. But Owen started actually listening to her arguments instead of dismissing them automatically. And Natalie began to see glimpses of a different man underneath the cold. Arrogant exterior. 3 weeks later, they won a major contract with Chen Industries, the same company Owen had rejected a year earlier. Natalie had initiated the new negotiations, and Owen had reluctantly agreed to support her plan. When the deal closed, bringing $40 million to Lancaster Technologies, the entire office celebrated that evening. Owen appeared at Natalie's office door with 2 glasses of champagne. "You should celebrate," he said awkwardly. "The win today." "It was mostly your work." Natalie accepted the glass, surprised. "It was both of our work. I came up with the strategy, but you handled the final negotiations well." They drank in silence for a moment. Then Owen said, "I need to tell you something. About why I am the way I am." Natalie set down her glass and waited. Owen walked to the window, staring out at the city lights. When I was 10 years old, my mother got cancer. Breast cancer, stage 3. My father was a successful businessman, wealthy, powerful. He had all the money in the world for the best treatment. But he did not want to be bothered with a sick wife. He just packed his things one day and moved to California with his secretary. He sent money for my mother's treatment, but he never called, never visited, never asked how she was doing. Natalie felt something tighten in her chest. "Owen, I am so sorry." "My mother survived," Owen continued, his voice flat and emotionless. "But she was never the same. She became small, quiet, afraid of everything. She told me that she should have been stronger, that maybe if she had been more independent, my father would not have left. And I decided right then that I would never depend on anyone. I would never care about anyone enough to be destroyed when they left." He turned to face Natalie. "So I built walls, high walls. And I told myself that relationships were just transactions, that people were assets or liabilities, nothing more. And then I married you, thinking you would be easy to control, easy to keep at a distance." He laughed bitterly. "I was so wrong." Natalie stood up and walked over to him. "Your father leaving had nothing to do with your mother's strength. He left because he was a coward who could not handle watching someone he loved suffer. That was his failure, not hers." "I know that now," Owen said quietly. "But I have spent 20 years building my life around avoiding what happened to her. And then you came along and forced me to see that I had become just like him. Cold, selfish, using people instead of caring about them." "You are not like him," Natalie said firmly. "Because you are here, right now, telling me this, you are trying to change. Your father never tried." Owen looked at her with an expression so vulnerable it made her heart ache. "I do not know how to change. I have been this person for so long, I do not know how to be anything else." "You do not have to figure it out all at once," Natalie said softly. "Just take it one day at a time, one choice at a time. Choose to be better today than you were yesterday." They stood close together, the space between them charged with something neither of them wanted to name yet. Then Owen did something that shocked both of them. He reached out and gently brushed a strand of hair from her face. "Thank you," he whispered, "for not giving up on me, even when I gave you every reason to." Natalie's breath caught. "Owen, we need to be careful. We are still married on paper, but this is not real. We should not confuse business partnership with something more." "What if I want it to be something more?" Owen asked, his hand still touching her cheek. Before Natalie could answer, her phone rang. She stepped back, breaking the spell, and answered it. Her face went pale as she listened. "What is wrong?" Owen asked immediately. "That was the hospital," Natalie said, her voice shaking. "Danny has collapsed. They think his heart is failing again. I need to go to Brooklyn right now. I'll drive you," Owen said without hesitation. "You do not have to do that." "I know I do not have to," Owen said, already grabbing his coat. "I want to? Come on." Meeting the brother, they drove to Brooklyn Hospital in Owen's car, speeding through the city's streets. Natalie sat in the passenger seat, hands clasped tightly together, praying silently. Owen said nothing, but he reached over and took one of her hands, holding it firmly. When they arrived, they found Danny in the ICU, hooked up to machines, looking pale and weak. He was awake, but clearly in pain. "Nat," he said when he saw her, trying to smile. "You did not have to come all the way out here. Do not be ridiculous," Natalie said, taking his hand. "Where else would I be?" Danny's eyes shifted to Owen, standing awkwardly in the doorway. "So you must be the husband I have heard nothing about." "Nat has been very secretive." "Danny, not now," Natalie said. "No, it is okay," Owen said, stepping into the room. "I am Owen, and your sister has every right to be secretive about me. I have not been a good husband." Danny studied him with surprising intensity for someone so sick. "But you drove her here. That is something." "It is the bare minimum," Owen said. "She deserves much more than that." The doctor came in then, a tired-looking woman in her 50s. "Danny, we need to talk about your options. The surgery we performed last year was successful, but the damage to your heart was more extensive than we thought. You are going to need a transplant sooner than we expected." How soon? Natalie asked, fear sharp in her voice. Within the next 6 months, ideally. The problem is that finding a match can take time, and the cost of a heart transplant and the anti-rejection medications you will need afterward is around $800,000. Natalie felt the world tilt. She had already used all of Owen's contract money for the first surgery. She had her salary now as co-CEO, but she had only been earning it for 3 months. She did not have anywhere near that much money saved. I will cover it, Owen said immediately. Everyone turned to stare at him. Out, Natalie said. The cost of the transplant and all follow-up care. I will cover everything, Owen repeated. Danny will get the best care possible. Money will not be an issue. Owen, that is too much, Natalie protested. I cannot ask you to do that. You did not ask. I offered. Owen looked at Danny. Your sister saved my company and probably my life. This is the least I can do. Danny looked between them, and despite his weakness, he smiled. I think you two might actually care about each other. You are just both too stubborn to admit it yet. The first real Kistani was moved to a private room after being stabilized. Owen arranged for the best cardiac specialists in New York to consult on his case. He made phone calls, pulled strings, and ensured that Danny was placed at the top of the transplant list. Natalie watched him work, saw the determination in his face, and felt something shift deep inside her. This was not the cold man who had humiliated her at the gala. This was someone who cared, who was trying so hard to make up for his past mistakes. Late that night, they stood in the hospital parking lot. It was nearly 2 a.m., and Natalie was exhausted, emotionally and physically drained. I do not know how to thank you, she said quietly. What you are doing for Danny, I will never be able to repay you. I do not want repayment, Owen said. He stepped closer to her. Natalie, I have been thinking about what I said earlier, about wanting our marriage to be real. I know the timing is terrible, and I know I have done nothing to deserve your trust. But I need you to know something. What? I am falling in love with you, Owen said, his voice raw with emotion. Maybe I have been for months, and I was just too proud and too scared to admit it. But seeing you tonight with your brother, seeing how much you love him, how strong you are, how good you are, I cannot pretend anymore that this is just a business arrangement for me. Natalie felt tears welling up. Owen, I do not know if I can trust this. You have hurt me so badly. I know, he said, reaching up to cup her face gently. And I will spend the rest of my life proving to you that I have changed, if you will let me. I am not asking you to love me back right now. I am just asking you not to give up on the possibility that we could be something real. Natalie looked into his eyes and saw nothing but honesty and vulnerability. The walls were completely down. He was showing her his heart, and it was terrified and hopeful and genuine. I am scared, she whispered. So am I, Owen admitted. But I am more scared of losing you. And then he kissed her. It was soft and gentle, and nothing like the cold, distant person he had been when they first met. Natalie kissed him back, letting herself feel everything she had been pushing down for months. The anger? Yes, but also the hope, the attraction, the possibility of something real. When they finally pulled apart, Owen rested his forehead against hers. I am going to be better, he promised. Not perfect, because I am still going to mess up sometimes. But I will try every single day to be the man you deserve. I am going to hold you to that, Natalie said, smiling through her tears. 6 months later, Donnie received his heart transplant 4 months later. The surgery was a success, and he recovered quickly, gaining strength and color every day. He moved into the penthouse with Natalie and Owen during his recovery, and Owen treated him like family, playing video games with him and arguing about sports teams at Lancaster Technologies. The company had fully turned around under Natalie and Owen's joint leadership. Profits were up 40%. Employee satisfaction had doubled. They had won 3 major contracts and launched 2 successful new products. And most importantly, they worked together seamlessly. Their different strengths complementing each other perfectly. The penthouse, once cold and empty, was now filled with life. Owen started coming home at 6 p.m. instead of midnight. They cooked dinner together, laughing when Owen inevitably burned something. They talked for hours about everything and nothing. And slowly, carefully, they built something real. One evening, 6 months after Danny's transplant, Owen and Natalie sat on their balcony watching the sunset over Manhattan. Danny had moved back to his own apartment the week before, finally healthy and independent. "I have something to ask you," Owen said, pulling a small box from his pocket. Natalie's breath caught. "Owen, what are you doing?" "This whole thing started with a contract," he said, opening the box to reveal a beautiful diamond ring. "A cold, business-like transaction where I treated you like property. I want to end that contract and start something new. Natalie Brooks Lancaster, will you marry me again? This time for real. For love, forever." Natalie felt tears streaming down her face. "Yes," she said, laughing and crying at the same time. "Yes, 1,000 times yes." Owen slipped the ring on her finger and kissed her deeply. When they pulled apart, he said, "I love you. I will say it every day for the rest of my life, until you believe it completely." "I already believe it," Natalie said softly. "I love you too. Not the man you were, but the man you became. The man you chose to be." "I only became that man because you refused to let me be anything less," Owen said. "You saved me, Natalie. From myself." A real wedding 3 months later, they held a real wedding. Not a courthouse ceremony, but a beautiful celebration, with 200 guests in a garden overlooking the Hudson River. Danny walked Natalie down the aisle, healthy and smiling. Jennifer Chen was there, along with all the employees from Lancaster Technologies who had supported Natalie during her rise to co-CEO. When the minister asked Owen to say his vows, he spoke from the heart with no prepared speech.
"Natalie,
I married you once because I needed something from you. Today, I am marrying you because I need you. Not for what you can do for me or how you can help me, but just for who you are. You taught me what it means to be a partner, what it means to be brave enough to let someone in. You turned my house into a home and my life into something worth living. I promise to spend every day earning the gift of your love." There was not a dry eye in the audience. When Natalie spoke her vows, her voice was strong and clear. "Owen, you were not an easy person to love, but you were worth the effort. You showed me that people can change, that walls can come down, that even the coldest heart can learn to feel warmth again. I am proud of the man you have become, and I am honored to stand beside you, not as your employee or your contract wife, but as your true partner in everything." They kissed as husband and wife for the second time. But this time, it meant everything. 1 year later, the complete circle. 1 year after their real wedding, Natalie discovered she was pregnant. When she told Owen, he cried tears of joy and immediately started researching how to be a good father, determined not to repeat his own father's mistakes. At Lancaster Technologies, they announced a new company policy: equal parental leave for all employees. 6 months paid for both mothers and fathers. Owen also created a scholarship fund in his mother's name for children of single parents, helping them afford college. "My mother told me to be strong by never needing anyone," Owen said during the announcement. "But real strength is knowing when to lean on others and being someone others can lean on. That is what Natalie taught me." The night before Natalie gave birth to their daughter, they sat together in the nursery they had prepared, and Owen said quietly, "Thank you." "For what?" Natalie asked. "For sitting at that back table at the gala," Owen said. "For not giving up when I tried to make you invisible. For showing me that the best partnerships are not about control, they are about respect. For loving me even when I did not deserve it." Natalie smiled and took his hand, placing it on her belly where their daughter was kicking. "Thank you for becoming someone worth loving. For tearing down your walls. For letting me in." Their daughter, Alina Rose Lancaster, was born the next morning. When Owen held her for the first time, he looked at Natalie with such pure love and gratitude that she felt her heart might burst. "I am going to be a better father than mine was," he promised, looking down at Elena's tiny face. "I know you will," Natalie said, "because you already chose to be a better man. Everything else flows from that choice." And in that moment, surrounded by love they had fought so hard to build, both of them knew that the humiliation at the gala, the painful journey from a fake marriage to a real one, and all the struggles along the way had been worth it. They had found something rare and precious, a partnership built not on contracts or convenience, but on respect, growth, and genuine love. The CEO, who had once told his wife to sit with the employees, had learned that true power comes not from putting others down, but from lifting them up. And the woman who had felt invisible had discovered that sometimes the greatest strength is making yourself seen. Together, they had built something neither could have created alone: a real marriage, a thriving company, and a family filled with the love that both of them had been searching for their entire lives.